Making more visits, that is a crucial swing state. With the African-American vote, as Will mentioned, is crucial in swing states, particularly North Carolina. Historically, black voters have reliably voted Democrat, but the real worry for Hillary Clinton this time around is not whether they vote for her, it's whether they vote at all. Well, we're going to have much more from here in New York throughout sunrise this morning here on Sky News Tonight. Adam Bolton is going to have all the latest in a special programme that's from midnight. Then tomorrow night, well, they do things bigger, brighter and a bit shinier in America, don't they? So our glass box in Times Square as those results come in, and they'll all be watching them on those big plasmas as the night unfolds. So from one big bright, shiny glass box in New York. Coming up at 8 o'clock, we'll have the latest from America as America gets ready to go to the polls. Less than 20, and we'll look at where the candidates are crisscrossing America in the final hours before they return home here to New York. A very good morning to you. You're watching Sunrise live in New York this morning from our studio overlooking the famous Times Square. Well, you've got to admit, it's been a long, dramatic and divisive campaign full of twists and turns. And with just hours to go before voting begins, there has been another twist. Hillary Clinton has been cleared by the FBI of any wrongdoing over her personal email account, something that has dogged her campaign throughout. So, could this last-minute boost be enough to see her enter the White House? Well, Donald Trump is claiming his opponent is being protected by a rigged system and insists he is still going to win. Both candidates now taking to the skies in a last-minute grab for votes. Is elections editor at YouGov, Will Jordan. And Will, just in these final few hours before voting opens, how much movement could we see in swing states? A dozen or so swing states, but it's Florida that's seen as the big prize, the Sunshine State, and they're both candidates virtually neck and neck. Why is Florida so important?
Well, it's always important because it's such a big state. It's a really big haul of electoral votes. It's 29 electoral votes. That's more than any of the swing states. It's also perennially competitive. So in this case, it's no exception. Hillary Clinton, as you see, has a small...
Declare the result.
I believe the results will start coming in from Florida around 8, but it'll depend on basically whether or not it's close, whether the exit polls are able to kind of call it early, or, you know, in 2012 we waited 4 days to get the final result out of Florida. So, well. You know, we cross our fingers that it's not a close electoral tie, and then we've got to wait for that again. But who knows? It's always a close state. It's very tightly divided, and we'll see soon.
Well, Florida is definitely one to watch. Well, can you believe it's taken 9 months to get to this point? You probably can. There's a lot of election fatigue around in America at the moment. The initial party primaries, they were way back in February, and both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are frantically putting in the air miles to reach the voters who may just swing this election their way. So, in the final push, shiny glass box to another. Jonathan, back in the UK.
Thanks very much, Sarah Jane. We'll
look at the polls as they stand at the moment. Both candidates are taking to the skies in a last-minute grab for votes. Let's have a look at the state of play in those polls ahead of the final day of campaign. Much more from our studio here in Times Square throughout sunrise this morning. Take a look at this backdrop. It's so iconic, the famous Times Square. A very good morning to you. This is Sunrise live in New York from our studio overlooking the famous Times Square. Well, it's been a long, dramatic and divisive campaign full of twists and turns, and with just hours to go before voting begins, there has been another one. Hillary Clinton has been cleared by the FBI of any wrongdoing over her personal email account, something that has dogged her campaign. So, could this last-minute boost be enough to see her enter the White House? Greg Milam has been following we're going to be following it all here on Sky News for the next 48 hours. Tuesday, of course, is the big day in our home here in our American glass box. We're live. No one knows seems to be the buzz phrase here at the moment. Let's talk more about swing states with elections editor at YouGov, Will Jordan. Although, Will, you feel that you've got a fair idea about what's going to happen come Tuesday. Let's talk more about those swing states. Why are they important? And it's Florida, isn't it, that's the big prize out of that dozen or so states.
Right. They're important because a large group of states in the United States are already basically decided, whereas there's a couple that stay very, very close. And the biggest of those, it's a very big, diverse state. It reflects some of the demographic changes that have been happening in the United States over the last 10 or so years. And you've been seeing some changes in the last couple of days as well, with potential surges of Latino voters, some surges of African American voters. And so you could be seeing the race really take shape early on. If, say, Clinton were to take it, it would basically shut out Donald Trump from getting to 270 electoral votes.
What are the other key states that we should be looking out for? Are key as well. Who turns out in those swing states to vote for either candidate? What demographics is Hillary Clinton relying on?
Well, Hillary Clinton is relying on very much the Obama coalition. She wants young voters, African-American voters, Hispanic voters to turn out. There's some signs in early voting that the Hispanic voters are really turning.
Here in Nick Martin's report there, a lady with a face painted in Halloween style was saying it's like picking the lesser of two evils. You know, a lot of Americans are still undecided. I saw a poll earlier in the week that said it had gone from 3% of people polled said they were undecided to 13% said they were undecided with less than 48 hours to go.
Yeah, it's definitely been a unique election in that both candidates are widely disliked. That's not something we've seen in recent elections. Even, back in 2012, both candidates were liked by a majority of the public, and that has pushed the undecided number much higher than usual. That creates some uncertainty as well. It could be that these voters don't turn out at all, but it could be a lesser of two evils for many of them, and they haven't yet been ready to make their decision final. And that's why some of these states where you see it within a point or two, there's still enough room for that to go either way.
Okay, well, thanks very much. Very much have your faith in the polls, as do a lot of Americans, actually. Watching all the various news coverage here, Jonathan, a lot of people are saying historically the polls are never wrong, but back in the UK we know only too well that they can be. General elections, referendums, so it remains to be seen. That's all from New York here at the moment, though.